What is going on, guys, and welcome to another episode of Second Guessing with Stressin. I'm your host, Garrett Williams, or AKA Houston Stressin's Texans commenter. I decided to do something new and do a Texans content creator spotlight. And today, our first guest on that is John Hickman with the Locked On Texans podcast. John, welcome. How are you today?
Thank you, man, for having me. I'm pretty good. Hope my audio is good here, but I'm pretty good, man. Extremely excited to talk Texans with you and to all of the listeners for the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been my favorite thing about what I've been doing. I guess what we all kind of do in this world is getting to know people such as yourself, and so that's kind of been my goal is to kind of shed light on individuals that do it because I've learned all that goes into it. It's not easy. It's definitely time consuming. So, and it's been cool too. I got to meet you a couple times in person at the watch parties at the Tejas Brewery,
Yeah,
and yeah, so we kind of chopped it up there. So. But yeah, I mean, so like the first question I would have for you is just if you don't mind, just kind of give me a background on yourself. However you want to do it, personal life, but basically more so focused on what you do with the Texans content. The podcast you're on with Big Sarge, how you got to that point. I think today was your 6 year anniversary, I believe.
yeah, it was. Shout out to me, man. Shout out to
Yeah,
me.
so I should say congrats first. That's quite the milestone right there.
Yeah, man. And never thought. Well, let me not say I never thought. I always knew that I'd be where I am now. I didn't know the road, didn't know the path, but I always believed in my plan, believed in myself. Went to Lamar University, went to school for communications with an emphasis on broadcasting, and then I also did some journalism as well. So I always wanted to be on camera or writing. I do that now in my professional life, aside from Locked On Texans, where I cover the Texans, but also, of course, I'm on camera on YouTube covering the Houston Texans. And so it's always been a dream of mine to be a sports journalist, be a sports broadcaster since I was a kid. It didn't work out with me going to the NBA, but
Me
it worked
either.
out with me being able to cover athletes each and every day.
That's awesome. So, I mean, I guess I take it, you're like me and the rest of us. It's just a passion of yours that you've found a way to make work, huh?
Yeah, man, and I would take it a step further because it was like I said, it was a passion of mine early in my life. Watching Amar Rashad after cartoons on Saturdays cover
Yes.
NBA, and so like just watching that, seeing how much fun that he had covering the NBA and his approach to it, and then Stuart Scott, of course. Always wanted to be that. I always wanted to put my name next to Amar Rashad and Stuart Scott. So, left high school, graduated, went to college, did what I had to do there, and then afterwards came out with an internship at ESPN Radio out here in Houston, 97.5. Did that for
Mhm.
about a year, some change. My former co-host, which is a very close friend of mine, Cody Davis, we had our own podcast. The opportunity to take over for Locked On came up from the host before us. And, initially it came to Cody, and Cody said, I'm not doing this without you. So shout out to my brother. We started doing Locked On. And then, like you said, yeah, 6 years later, I'm still here covering the Houston Texans Monday through Friday, your team every day. I'll say this, man. Me being a Patriot fan, and I used to get killed for this, but me not being a fan of the team, Texan fans are some of the best in the world, man. Like, I used to get a lot of flack for that, but over the course of time, I think because of my work and how I covered Houston, with very unbiased, that allowed people to see points of views that maybe they wouldn't have, and I think that allowed for me to connect with a lot of Texan fans. So I wouldn't be 6 years deep without Texan fans. So shout out to those guys, man, guys and girls, excuse me.
That's dope. So I guess today the news with Stephon Diggs had to be like a bittersweet moment for you, like, covering, and I'm sure you're a Texans fan now too if you cover the team, but so what are your thoughts on that from a Texans and or a Patriots perspective?
Well, from a Patriot perspective, I didn't like the move, man. I knew we were going to overpay for a receiver. I was completely okay with giving T. Higgins $35 million a year, 23 for Stephon, and to be fair to Diggs, like he is projected to be ready for Week 1.
Mhm.
Diggs is a receiver that doesn't need a lot of time to prepare to get ready for games. I mean, he's been doing it for a long time. I thought that number was extremely high. for the Houston Texans, that's just if they end up winning a Super Bowl or getting close to it, Diggs would be like just a blip on the road for them. Like they tried, they swung, they missed. In some cases, Diggs worked out for Houston, but ultimately voided the last 3 years of his contract, traded the second round pick for 2025. And so, like, I think that looks bad on Houston, but it didn't work out. And it left Houston with a void in their wide receiver room because now, yeah, they traded for Christian Kirk. He's coming off an injury, but very inexpensive deal, so that's okay. It's justifiable. But the rest of the room looks like Braxton Berrios, Justin Watson, John Mechie, Xavier Hutchinson. Four of those guys, two of those guys are, going into their third year without any real eye popping games. The other two guys are just vets that's been around for a long time. So Houston still has I think, a deep need at wide receiver, and I think we'll see them address it for real in the NFL draft in April.
Yeah, I agree, and I think I agree with both your sentiments. I mean, I love Stephon Diggs. I thought he was great for us. I mean, it was a gamble, and it didn't pay off. He got hurt. It was like an all-in type of move.
It was.
But as far as the Patriots, though, I think that was an overpay. Like you mentioned, the ACL, like it was an early injury, and he's ahead of schedule. But I mean, it's almost like they just had a bunch of money and they just spent it. Like you didn't have to do that, in my opinion.
They had,
Was
I
it
mean,
23 million APY
yeah, it's a
or
lot.
20? Yeah.
26 guaranteed. I've looked at the numbers. I'm on a Texan podcast, so I'm referring. I'm trying to not say the word "we" as I refer to the Patriots,
No, that's fine, bro. We don't
but
care.
we had a lot of money and it had to go somewhere. And I think of all of the receivers available, Stephon Diggs may still have the highest upside.
Yeah.
Look at what Stephon Diggs can bring to a locker room for a young quarterback. Kind of the same thing that he did with Josh Allen. He's not that version of Stephon Diggs anymore, but last year being around the Texans, not as much as other media members like Sarge, my co-host, like DJ Bieniemy, like John Alexander, Aaron Wilson. Those guys are around a lot more than I am, but they'll attest to the fact that Stephon Diggs meant a lot in that locker room. And he meant a lot to those young guys in their receiver room. So that is the positive for the Patriots. And I also think that is somewhat of a negative for the Texans losing him.
Mhm.
I will say for the Houston Texans, whatever reason you would say this is what Stephon Diggs for Houston in 2024, I think Nico Collins restructuring his contract proved that he is the leader of that room. And I also think he is one of the leaders of this team. So Nico is going into year 4 now. All of the leadership qualities that he was able to soak up from Stephon Diggs, I am one of those guys that I'm looking forward to seeing Nico, be that version for Houston moving forward.
I agree, and so, like, I've been arguing too, like, while, like, we didn't get the full year of production from Stephon Diggs, I still feel like there will be a carryover effect from his presence that he showed them. He came in as a true vet. He, taught guys routes. I mean, we all saw clips of, like, him not only staying after practice in the training camp with receivers, but also DBs teaching him stuff that he's learned. But he brought the juice, the energy. Like, he showed them how to be a leader. Like, it was crazy to me because you always hear this stuff about Stephon Diggs and these you know stereotypes or whatever, and then you see him and it's like it's a complete opposite. So
Yeah, I
it's
think
tough it
with
didn't work
Diggs,
out, but
I mean, he was in Buffalo for a long time, and while in Buffalo, they kind of reached their peak. And so, we've all had some type of relationship in our life where you keep forcing it. You may not break up yet, but you keep forcing it, and it's just like, you know what, man, it ain't working. You ain't doing the dishes, not
mhm.
cooking. I gotta keep asking you to take out the trash and stuff like that. So it gets
Yeah,
annoying, and over a course of time, it gets overwhelming. And then when you find a new situation, you kind of hide some of your qualities that you portrayed in your last relationship. Now, I don't know if he was hiding qualities in Houston, but what I will say is compared to what everybody else has to say about Stephon Diggs in Buffalo, maybe even Minnesota, in his 1 year in Houston, none of that came up.
yeah. And so, like, maybe that's and we can only guess as to what would have happened, and based off of the track record, you could assume that would have happened. But I mean, to your point too, like I saw the Patriots as a good landing spot because he's basically playing the exact same role he played in Houston, but except they're less of a contender. But now you have Drake May in year two, you had C.J. Stroud in year two, so you're kind of a mentor there. You have a young wide receiver room, and so I think that will be tremendous for them. We got a good question here from Robert Land. He says, "What do you think about expatriate Trent Brown? Is he just a camp body?"
Man, that's a good question. I am 50-50 on the second part of that question. Is he just a camp body? Trent Brown is a player that, when motivated, when playing with a chip on their shoulder, you get the best version out of him. The problem is that isn't consistent. The problem is there's times where you're not getting the best effort out of Trent Brown, and then you're not getting the best effort out of Brown on top of the injuries piling up. He's not available. I also think his weight was a problem, has been a problem for him throughout his year. I said that throughout his career. Excuse me. I said that on the Locked On Texan podcast when we talked about Trent Brown on Monday. Now, the second part of that question, is he just a camp body? I think Trent Brown still wants to prove he can play in the NFL. I think Trent Brown, before he went down last year in Cincinnati, did a very good job of blocking for Joe Burrow. And that was only 3 games, so that's an extremely small sample size. But I don't want to just classify him as a camp body because he is a vet the Houston Texans can lean on if something happens. And last year, things would happen, and they would have to lean on second-year guys, and it didn't work out. And so Trent Brown, to me, comes off as a good piece for depth, also a good camp competition person. And if he plays at the level that he can play in the NFL,
Hmm.
does he beat out Cam Robinson? You know, what happens at right tackle? He's played left and right tackle in the NFL. We've just given that role to Blake Fisher. I'm probably one of the only people that believes that Blake Fisher can really thrive playing guard. So what does the best version of Trent Brown bring out in the rest of that offensive line room? And he's also a guy that's been under Cole Popovich, been under Nick Caley, so the familiarity is there as well.
That's some great points, and I'm surprised to hear you say, like the effort and the overweight. I mean, it seemed like they were trying to get rid of those things specifically on the O line, and now you kind of replace it with that. But at the very least, it seems like a low risk, high reward situation. We got about 2 minutes. Is it okay if I ask you one more question before I turn you loose?
Absolutely, man. We can add another 2 minutes on after that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, since we have the Patriot connection and you know them, it's a hot topic, and I know you address it on your show, and I have my thoughts, but I'm curious, for the fans right now, what is your whole opinion on the fear of the Patriot South? Adding Trent Brown, adding the fullback and the coaches. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, we talked about that. I believe it was Friday's show or maybe Monday, but I kind of explained it the best way I can. So before this year, when it was Bobby Sloyd, when it was bringing over Jimmy Ward, then the following year they bring in Aziz, right, and then D'Amico Ryans is the head coach. The notion of this being 49er South was okay. It was cool. It was fun. And I think that may be because at the time the 49ers were like the perennial or they're gonna, win the championship. And so the DNA of the 49ers getting to the Houston Texan team, a franchise that had never won it, that has never won anything, the idea I think was kind of fun. I do think Patriot South may be a bit much, but I look at it like this, guys, because I think it is a Patriot South thing going on in Houston, but it's not because they're trying to they're not being like the little brother anymore. Like when that first came up, it was it was like, okay, let me bring my little brother with me. Now I look at it like everything that the 49ers South, Bobby Slowick, ruined the offense, everything that came with it the last couple of years, you're now looking for Nick Caley and Cole Popovich to turn around. And a lot of people like to pinpoint to Caley's time in LA and look at, what he can bring from LA. And I'm like, he spent a lot of time, Tom Brady spent a lot of time in New England. He spent a lot of time with a franchise that won championships. So did Nick Casario. And so I think it could be unfair to classify the Texans as the Patriots of the South. But I do look at it like those guys, Cole, Kaylee, and Casario, those guys are gonna implement everything that they can, knowledge wise, play style from the players that they're looking for, coaching, to bring the success that they witnessed and was a part of from their New England days to Houston. And so I want to clarify because I do think it's, where the Texans are as a franchise now, I understand why fans can find that disrespectful. But it's not to say like Patriots of the South, oh, you guys are copying this because you want to be a little brother. No, it's more so of those guys who are brought in or elevated in Cole Popovich to fix the issues that Bobby Sloyd screwed up with, last year. And now the thought is they're going to make what was bad last year successful. They're going to get the most out of guys. And for 20 years, I watched that franchise get the most out of guys like Danny Amendola, get the most out of guys like Julian Edelman, who turned out to have a great career. Get the most out of guys like a Kimbrell Thompson for a couple of games, or Aaron Dodson for a couple of games. Get the most out of guys like Chris Hogan. Get the most out of a lot of guys that were just like nameless guys, and then you look up and they're making big plays in the Super Bowl.
Chris Hogan, Justin Watson.
Justin Watson, Chris Hogan, Amendola, Braxton
Kirk,
Berry. Like,
or Barrios, yeah, Kirk's
so
better
like
than that, but
those correlations are there. And I think it's okay to look at it and say, man, the influence that those two guys can bring to fix our offensive line, to protect CJ Stroud from the inside out, which is what Nick Kelly said, to get the most out of a John Mitchell or Xavier Hutchinson, that should be, I think, worth saying, like, okay, hey, we need to give them time to figure it out because they know what they're doing. They've been a part of it for so long.
yeah, and I think too, like, it's a sensitive, emotional topic for a lot of fans because when we think about this, we think about Bill O'Brien when he tried to do it, and the big thing for that for me was he was trying to be someone he wasn't. He was trying to be like Bill Belichick when there's only one Bill Belichick. He was trying to be like this my way or the highway type of guy. The difference is now, in my opinion, we have D'Amico Ryans, and I would argue, like, I mean, your point is great. Like, yeah, why would you not, if you have guys that came from a certain area, try to emulate, the success they had, like instead of reinventing the wheel. But my argument would be that I kind of lost my train of thought there. I was talking about the Patriots. Yeah, I just had a total brain fart there. But I mean, I don't think it's a bad thing that's happening. But I would say the biggest thing of why they're getting these coaches, it's like more of a network than it is, them specifically making a concerted effort of trying to do that is what I was going to say. It's about who you know. It's the NFL. Your circle is only so big, and so I think that's not being talked about as much either.
And I want to end off with this. Bill Belichick is known as one of the greatest minds, defensive minds. In the
Mm-hmm.
last couple of years, man, we've seen D'Amico Ryans
Dude.
turn the defense around. Last year was insane, right? He got the best out of a lot of guys.
Yep.
Hey, it's okay to just win with a stout defense.
Facts.
And again, I think we have not heard anything from CJ Stroud. I think there was one picture floating around because somebody caught him getting ice cream or something like that. But Drew Brees have talked highly of CJ Stroud. Tom Brady has stamped CJ Stroud. It's okay to win with a stout defense, taking the ball away, getting sacks, shutting offenses down, and your quarterback being so mentally prepared with pinpoint accuracy and knowing how to beat the defense. That sounds like what? I watched it for a very long time. That
Mm-hmm.
sounds like Patriot-esque.
Yep.
I understand it's disrespectful for Texas fans, so let's just call it success.
That works. And you bring a good point too. So like I've been trying to preach this too. Like as fans, we want the Texans or any team to win with, scoring 50 points and all this stuff. But like D'Amico Ryans wants to win this way. And this was, a lot of our concerns in hiring a defensive minded head coach. But now you just kind of call out like, hey, not all these Super Bowl winners have to be offensive head coaches, you can do it with defensive head coaches, and that's what the Patriots did. So then, yeah, we should follow that blueprint to an extent. That's
And
a great
and
point.
I mean 6 championships in 20 years.
Yeah, that's hard to beat. Well, John, I appreciate you coming on. If you want to, pitch anything while you're on here, whether it's Texans related or not, feel free to do so.
Yeah, absolutely, man. First and foremost, again, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. Shout out to everybody that's in the chat. Um, Robert Land, please don't sign East to be no more. But thank you guys for hopping on, supporting not only myself, but my boy Garrett. We ain't stressing tonight. We blessed.
That's
Follow
right,
me,
baby.
John_Hickman12. Also follow the Locked On Texans page on YouTube and subscribe, like, and comment as well. We got a lot of great stuff coming on for you guys. So tap in with us.
I appreciate it. And, so this is just like a mini little turbo series, and I'll be happy to have you on later again for an extended period of time if you're willing to do so. So,
Let's get it. I mean, it's
all
9 o'clock right now, so if we can get it a little bit earlier.
Yep. I got you. Noted.
I'm a young old man, so it's past my bedtime.
I hear you, man. I hear you. Well, yeah, whenever you're ready, you can just exit. And then next up, we got AD, but I appreciate you, John.
Shout out to my boy AD. They do a very good job breaking down film. And I know you got my boy Ruben on. He does a very good job of covering the Houston, Texas. The Texans community, amazing. Amazing.
Facts.
And so I love what you're doing, locking in everybody, support everybody. Let's all get to our dream and goals. I'm out.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, brother. All right. And now we got my guy AD. What's good, bro?
What's going on, brother? How you doing?
Good, man. It's been a minute. How's life been treating you?
Hey, wonderful. Blessing, man. Blessing.
Let's go.
Yes,
Yeah, man.
sir.
So I kind of told you, and I guess you're kind of familiar with what I'm doing. I thought like it would be cool to kind of get, fellow content creators like me, such as yourself and John.
Mhm.
Initially just to kind of get it for us a chance to know you guys. I'm sure a lot of people in the chat already do, but so yeah, I mean, first off, I'll just say like, give me a background on you. You can
Mhm.
include personal life if you want to, but more so about like kind of, sports fandom and how it's led you to what you're doing now.
Yeah, AD man, H-Town Rundown host. Been a sports fan my whole life. Dad was a high school football coach and basketball coach. So been around the game, football and basketball my whole life. Baseball as well. Texan fan since they, was inaugural season 2002. Diehard Texan fan. Um, pretty much simply based. I'm just a guy that loves talking about the Texans and loves talking sports in general. So just an everyday guy, man.
Yeah, you sound like me. And how long you been doing it now? Like with your
Uh 2.5 years now. It'll
okay.
be going on 3 years. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a little bit behind you, but I mean, it sounds like, our paths are similar. We're just like born and raised, like ever since I could talk, I just love sports and I've
Mm-hmm.
always been in like the shadows on social media, but I finally made my own and now it's kind of nice and refreshing to get your takes out there. But yeah, so we got people in the chat, Mr. Optimistic saying what up.
What's
Uh
up, Mr. Optimistic? Look,
but
he's been Mr. Pessimistic lately.
That's
Uh,
crazy. He's switching up. Oh, we gotta address this. What's he stressing on?
oh man, he's stressing on the draft, man. The draft and the offensive lineman, man. He's been putting that Titus Howard negativity in the air.
I saw some of that. He's thinking that Titus might be gone, huh?
Yeah, no, man. We gotta ride with Titus, man.
I hear you. I agree. But yeah, so I mean, we got to do the AFC South roundtable. I get people asking all the
Mm-hmm.
time, which was AD, myself, Ruben, and Harley.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll have to make that happen soon. But as far as today goes, I mean, I think the background is pretty good. People know the H Town rundown. You're on there, and I hope to have some of your other co-hosts, on this series eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess let's just talk ball, man. It's been a while. I mean, how do you feel up until this point with what the Texans have done so far in the offseason?
I see the culture change. Um, it was brought up before about how D'Amico Ryan's specifically on the last podcast for the H Town Rundown, how with Big Sarge, how the H Town not H Town how the Texans have changed their culture, how D'Amico Ryans came in and changed the culture of the Texans. He definitely changed the culture on the defensive side of the football from top to bottom. Headhunters, I think Todd McShay, or was it the James Palmer? I think it was James Palmer that said it.
Jesse Palmer, maybe.
Jesse Palmer. No, no, no. Is it James
Oh, it
Palmer?
is, I'm sorry, you're right, James
Yeah,
Palmer. Yeah.
James Palmer. Yeah. The guy for NFL Network said that D'Amico Ryans wants eat glass guys. So like he has that mentality. He wants that on the defensive side, and he has that on the defensive side of the football. And now you see them making the switch now on the offensive side of the football. I think year one for D'Amico, everybody was just trying to figure it all out. And we hit lightning, in a bottle with CJ Stroud, Will Anderson, and we had great success. Year two, D'Amico Ryans came in with a purpose on the defensive side of the football, bringing in Daniil Hunter, bringing in Aziz Al-Shaair, bringing in drafting Kamari Lassiter and Kalen Bullock, and guys that are just nasty defensively. Danico Autry, the D tackle we just re-signed. What's his name?
Mario Edwards.
Mario Edwards, bringing Tim Settle.
Those
All
are
of
all
these
dogs, man.
dogs, you know what I mean? So, getting Henry To'oTo'o another year, getting those
Yep.
guys in, and Derek Stingley, all pro Derek Stingley. All these guys on the defensive side of football, he came in with a mindset. And, I know you and John were talking about Stephon Diggs and everything like that. I think that was just let's try to go for the gusto. Let's try to go for it all. Bring in Stephon Diggs and everything. He's a home run hit, signing in the offseason. Now you're in the mode of now we're bringing in guys on offense that match the mentality of the defensive side of the football. I know that a lot of Texan fans don't know of the guys because you see a lot of people go straight to PFF grades. And they don't really, and they pick up the low light film of the guys. They really don't take especially, and we're talking about the offensive line specifically, because that's the moves that they made. That's the wave that they made by trading Laremy Tunsil, by bringing in Lincoln Tomlinson, by bringing in Ed Ingram, by bringing in Cam Robinson and Trent Brown. There's a similarity to all those guys.
Facts.
They play nasty. They play
nastiness.
Tough.
That's what D'Amico talks about.
Right. They play nasty. They play tough. There is no BS with them guys. With those guys. You look at, I know we talked about it before, the offensive line, in all intents and purposes, was soft. Between Kenyon Green, between Laremy Tunsil, between Shaq Mason, and when you have veterans on that line like Laremy Tunsil and Shaq Mason who are older and not as pronounced nasty guys, that rubs off on the rest of your offensive line.
And it was like the videos you see of like CJ getting hit and them not picking up. It was
like,
it's supposed to be like one collective, cohesive unit. And instead, it was like 5 individuals, like everyone out for themselves. Like no one worried about helping each other. Like everyone just wanted to make sure they did their job, and that was it.
And that's the point that I made on last Wednesday, was that they played individual football on the offensive line, which is the worst thing you could ever do on the offensive line. It's playing individual football, and that right there caused a lot of issues. And I know that we had, this is probably my promise. This is my last time people are talking about Laremy Tunsil. Laremy Tunsil was a me guy. I'm gonna do what I need to do. I'll be damn what everybody else has going on. I'm shining. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Be damn what everybody else is doing.
And he's the de facto leader too,
and he's
whether
the
he
lead,
likes it or not.
He's your captain. He's your leader. And you can say what you want to say about Laremy Tunsil as a leader in the locker room and everything like that. Laremy Tunsil's play did not dictate him being a leader on the offensive line. Right. So the mentality, going back to the original point, the mentality on the offensive side of the football, CJ is a dog.
Yep. That Broncos player, remember that?
Yes, and that's the point example. Like, he is like, I don't give a damn. I'll get in your face. We can square up. We can box right now. I don't care. The whole point about it, you want your offensive line to be those type of guys. You
Facts.
want your offensive line to be like just like an NBA game. I don't care if I get tossed.
Scrappy, yeah.
We gonna fight every play. It's gonna be a war. When you leave this field, you know you had a battle against our offensive line. That's the type of guys that we want on the offensive line. That's the type of guys D'Amico Ryan wants on his offensive line. And not just offensive line. Christian Kirk is a gritty guy at the
Mhm.
receiver position.
Good
Yes, he has an
point.
injury history, but he is a gritty guy. Braxton Berrios,
Mhm.
Justin Watson, all these guys are lunch pail guys that
Yep.
come in and do what they need to do
Yep.
to get the job done. They're not a celebrity. I need to do this. I need to be seen type guys. I'm coming in, do my job. We gonna make it work, and we gonna eat lunch and go home. So that is what they brought in on the offensive side of the football, and that's what you love to see. You see that Nick Caley is going to bring that style of offense where we're going to punch you in the mouth,
Yep.
and I don't give a damn what you're going to do about it. So I love it. I honestly I love it because the mentality is something that I've been preaching forever.
Man, I love it too. I mean, I'm glad you're pointing this out. And like, so a couple things I'll ask you about, like off of that. Like, one, it seems like what we're doing with the O line is similar to what we do with the D line. Like, we always every year we want Christian Wilkins and this guy and that guy, and we sign
Mhm.
a bunch of no name vets, and then they come into our system, but they have the mentality and the qualities that fit our scheme, and they ball the hell out and have career years. So that seems to be the same recipe we're doing on O line. And then I
Mhm.
think I would also, this is my assumption, I don't know if you feel the same way, but excuse me. I feel like you mentioned the first couple years, first year, D'Amico's first time head coach, figuring things out. Second year, like we're all watching this, dumpster fire of an offensive Slowick. And like I personally am like wanting D'Amico to like intervene and like, help out and change things. But it
Mhm.
seemed like he was completely hands off and delegated 100% as you
Well,
would
let
want
me
to do.
let me say this. He was not as hands off as people want to say. D'Amico Ryans had his hand in a lot of things and decisions regarding Kenyon Green and Shaq Mason in the playoff game.
Yeah, that's
So,
disheartening.
so
Yeah.
D'Amico Ryans has his hands in it because I don't care what anybody says. Like, there's no head coach that's completely hands off on any side of the football.
Yeah.
Whether it's
Well,
an
I guess like
offensive coach,
personnel wise, I'm thinking
yeah,
more of like scheme.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that's
yeah.
still kind of
He's hands off on
that
that.
still kind of bothered me though too though. I was hoping to like more of that was, on Bobby. And that's why a lot of us too had concerns about loyalty and stuff like that because we were trying
Hmm.
to figure out why he's making these decisions.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that's a good point. But like I guess what I'm saying is like more so, like intervening scheme and like
Yeah,
play
yeah,
calling, like, hey
yeah.
Bobby, quit running freaking zone, run gap. It works.
Right,
But it
right.
seemed like just from like, a surface level fan, like rather than like step in, like he gave him his own rope to hang himself with. Like, no, like you either figure it out or you don't, or you're out.
Hmm.
And I don't know if he's going to have that same approach or not. It sounds like it. Like, but now you just have to make sure to get the hire right. So I
Yeah,
want to know what your thoughts are on that.
I think that he's going to be. Let me say this: you don't get many opportunities to rotate your offensive coordinators,
Yeah.
as a head coach. Period. Or if it's an offensive coach, defensive coordinators, you don't get a chance to run in three or four different coordinators.
Under good circumstances.
Yes, under unless they're getting hired away and poached, then that's the
That's a good sign.
caveat. Yeah, that's the caveat. But if you're a head coach and you're having to fire, if you're a defensive head coach, let's just go down, point blank, defensive head coach, and you have to fire your offensive coordinator, three offensive coordinators, you're on a hot seat. You're on a hot
Yep.
seat, and now you're in a position where you're going to get fired. Like
Yep.
this is the point where now D'Amico has to, not BS around with it. Like if it's not working, I'm not going to hesitate to pull the trigger. I think that was a lot of the loyalty things that you talked about with D'Amico Ryans last year, is that he knew it wasn't working, but he was so loyal that he did not want to pull the trigger on getting rid of Bobby Slowick middle of the season.
So he
The
could have
world,
learned his lesson essentially.
right, right, and so now you have no choice but to
Yeah.
make this work. If this doesn't work with Nick Caley, then now you can't be hesitant on pulling the plug.
It's
on
also
it.
unique too, though, because like there was like I was fully prepared for Slowick to be retained, and there
Mhm,
was a case to keep him. Like it wasn't the best, but like they could have came out and said stuff. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it.
mhm,
But like, so like, I guess it's kind of unique too because we've still have went to the playoffs in back to back years.
mhm.
But yeah, but your point is still valid. Like I agree. Like so, but I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
No, no, no. So is the point of D'Amico Ryans is like I said it before, on Space and on the podcast, is that D'Amico's Ryan's seat now, if you have the cars that have the seat warm on it, you have the setting that's high and low or whatever, the basics. D'Amico Ryan's seat warmer is on low right now. It's
Hmm.
and he feels it. And his butt is getting a little warm, it's a little chilly, but it's not burning. So the seat is not hot, but is lukewarm. And I don't care what people say because people love D'Amico Ryans. I love D'Amico Ryans, but the fact is, you can't sit up here and say I'm going to go into another season after this season if it doesn't work out with Nick Caley, that I'm going to go into another season with another offensive coordinator for 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
And that hurts the development of CJ Stroud, your franchise quarterback that you eventually, after the third year, you're going to pay him $60 million a year
Hmm.
at the minimum. And you're hurting his development, your franchise quarterback, and now you're showing a little sign of incompetence when it comes to deciding how you want to run your offense as a head coach.
Yep.
So, Nick Caley, hey, this has at this point this has to work for D'Amico Ryans. I just feel like I think they're building the mentality. The mentality makes it work. And when it comes to the success, you're talking about retaining Bobby Slowick and the success we had, the success was predicated on defense. And I'm gonna say this right now: the way the defense is, barring injury, this team defensively can get you to the playoffs every season,
Facts.
regardless.
And so John and I just talked about this, and I think we've already both thought this, but like this is like it or not, this is the way D'Amico Ryans wants to win through
Mhm,
defense and just boring, methodical offense. He doesn't want to put up 30, 40 points a game. He wants to play field position, all that stuff. Like,
right.
end of the day, a dub is a dub.
Oh, he would love a 10-7 game every week. Like
I mean,
he
how
would.
many times do you see where he just leans on the defense, bro? Like where he
Yeah,
could be aggressive, play like it's frustrating and it's stressful as fuck, but
right.
like it works. I mean,
You
more
can
often than
see
not.
you can see by the decisions he made on the offensive side of the football in situations instead of going for it. I think there was a lot of complaints. Why don't we go for it on 4th and 2? Why are we punting the ball and we're at the like 45-yard line on our side of the field and we're punting the ball on 4th and 2 instead of just going for it, making those decisions because saying I'm relying on my defense. So I'm gonna punt the ball and rely on my defense to make the stop to get the ball back. And we were a very opportunistic defense
Yep.
last year by turning the ball over. I think we had a turnover damn near in every game.
If we just had a
Um,
decent offense, it would have been up,
oh
dude.
man, if we could have run the ball consistently, it
Yeah,
would have been we
that's the
would have
big thing, which is what it sounds like what Kaylee wants to do too. Like, it's not a sexy, flashy offense. He just wants to run the rock, bro,
right, right. So
which makes it
man,
better for CJ.
exactly. That play
Yeah.
action pass game is going to be dangerous with Nico Collins and Christian Kirk
Hell yeah.
and whatever receiver we draft. Because I hate to break it to you, fans, we are drafting a receiver
Well,
in
that's
this
great
draft.
because that leads me to my last question. Harley, I know you're in the lobby. You're coming on in just a minute. We got one more question from AD. Appreciate your patience. But I'll give my last question and then I'll kind of follow up to give you a chance to kind of shout some stuff out. But before you go, who do you think that we'll take in the first round, assuming we stay in the first round? Who do you think we will take? Who do you think the Texans will take, and who would you like for us to take?
So who do I think they will take? It honestly it all depends on how the draft falls,
That's
which
fair.
is this draft is so weird because we were just thinking about the Giants taking a quarterback.
Yeah,
They just signed two. They just signed
that
Jameis
GM's a freaking
Winston
idiot, dude.
and Russell Wilson. So we can take a quarterback off. Like everybody was saying, well, a third quarterback will sneak in the first round. That may not happen, and a player that you assume may fall, like a Matthew Golden or a Luther Burton, probably won't be there at 25. And do you trade up? So all of these different things and questions, but honestly, I'll just say who I would like them to take. And it's two players, and it's both receivers. It's either Luther Burden or Matthew Golden. If one of those two guys are there, I'm taking them. Um, I wouldn't. I was on the fence, not on the fence. I was on the side of taking a Josh Simmons at 25, but with them signing Trent Brown, them signing Cam Robinson, it's like, okay, I'm not drafting a guy at 25 to redshirt him. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like at some point he would have to see the field. But if you
Thanks.
draft a guy like Josh Simmons, you're basically going to put him on injury reserve and say, we'll see you in 2026.
We're trying to win now, so that doesn't make
Right,
sense.
exactly. It doesn't make sense. So, I do what if he falls to the second round, do I see the Texans trying to trade up to get him? Hell yeah, I'll be on board for that all day. But at 25 right now, I honestly think you need to go weapon first,
Hmm.
and you can get your offensive lineman in the second and third rounds because you're going to be drafting for interior more anyway. Um, I think those guys can be had in the second and third round. So I think get your weapon first in Matthew Golden or Luther Burton.
I kind of agree. Like, initially, as bad as the O line picture looked before the offseason began, it was like, oh, we got to go O line no matter what. But I mean, and like the drop off from like a impact playmaker from the first to second, third round receiver wise is a
Mhm.
big deal. So I'm happy with that. I appreciate it, man.
Mhm.
Appreciate you coming on before you head off. Just feel free to shout anything out. And, like I said to John, too, hopefully we can do this again where we have like a longer back and forth because it's always nice talking ball with you, man.
Hey, so for sure, man. Y'all can see John Hickman tomorrow night with the H Town Rundown. As we'll be talking more about the offensive line as well. John Hickman, big offensive line guy. I got to get to that question about him saying that Blake Fisher can play guard.
That was
So
interesting. I never thought about that.
we're definitely gonna talk about that.
What
But
time's
just
the show tomorrow?
7 o'clock, man. 7 o'clock on Wednesdays.
I'll
Go
tap
ahead and
in.
follow the H Town Rundown every Wednesday right now at 7 o'clock. If Ruben stops being a prima donna, interviewing Paul Wall and going to Dave and Buster's and being a celebrity out here in these streets, we'll get back to the AFC South as well. AFC South
Miss
Texas
it, man.
round table, should I say? With Harley, who's coming up, handsome guy Harley coming up. Definitely got to get us back in the swing of things, and
Hmm.
we got to do at least one mock draft, right?
Yeah, dude, we got to.
But definitely follow me on H Town Run, the H Town Rundown on all platforms. Also the H Town Rundown.org, our website. H Town Rundown on Twitter, H Town Rundown podcast on TikTok, H Town Rundown podcast on Instagram as well, and Facebook H Town Rundown. Follow us, man. Enjoy the content.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Give him a follow, and I hope to have your other co-hosts on. So this is something I hope to do
Yes.
once a week, like a little quick blitz to kind of introduce people to people they may have not have heard of. So,
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's
Shout
good
out
to
my
see you,
co-host
man.
for sure. Shout out my co-host Mike G, Auntie Swan, and Jules, man.
All great
Yes.
people. Y'all
Hey,
make sure and
enjoy
tap
the
in.
time. Y'all already know Garrett is blessing as always.
We bless him, baby.
Yes, sir.
All right, D. I'll see you online, bro.
All right. Bet.
All right, man. That was fun, man. 80's my guy. He's still here. He doesn't want to leave. All right, Harley, I'm tapping you in here, bro. You ready? All right, good deal.
I'm good to go. Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
so
up,
it's a
brother?
little risky by me, kind of just going with the flow here, but it seemed to have worked. And sorry
I'm
for
cool.
leaving you hanging for a little bit there, but it's good to see you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing just fine. You know, just doing YouTube and living life. That's all I'm doing right now.
Yeah, same old, huh?
Yep, pretty much, man. Ain't nothing new for over here, man. Trying to get. I'm almost at 13K. Trying to get
Let's
there.
go.
So, I've been posting a lot more on Instagram and TikTok. So trying to get
I
those
see
numbers
that.
up. So the numbers are pretty good right now. So trying to capitalize on that upswing of momentum right now,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I do, man.
Oh, you're crushing it. Go ahead and shout your stuff out real quick, and then we'll plug at the end as well.
Yeah, man. At the lead underscore HOU. That's where you can follow me on any platform: TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Those are the main three that I use. And obviously Twitter, of course, or X, whatever they call it now. Yeah, now I use all four of them primarily. I'm try to drop as much Texans content as possible, getting some Astros and Rockets stuff. I know I haven't gotten as much content as I want for the Astros and Rockets, and people even in this comment section have called me out on it. So yeah, I'll definitely be trying to get back into the swing of things, doing some more Astros and Rockets content.
Hey, I feel you, man. I mean, like the content for Texans alone is endless, so it's kind of hard to do it
Yeah.
all. But especially like, I mean, the NFL, it's like 24/7, bro. Like the season ends and you're like, okay, cool, I get to take a breather. It's like, nah, dude, you got combine, draft,
Yeah.
free agency, like all this stuff, man. So but yeah, so as far as this series, I kind of briefed you on a little bit, but it's just, the main purpose is to kind of get people to know other content creators, such as myself or such as you. I'm sure most people here know you, but with that being said, if you don't mind, just kind of give us a background, however you want to do it, just kind of, more about you and how you've done what you're doing with this.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I my name's Harley. Okay, I'm from Houston. I've been born and raised here in Southeast Houston, around 45 South for my whole life. So yeah, I nothing nothing new here. A lot of people know that already, but a lot of people know that I also have a YouTube channel. I started the YouTube channel. Oh man, let's see. I already have it open right here. I could take a look real quick. I started it in 2020, and I remember I did. It was around February. I have a good friend of mine. His name's Hasiel. Great friend of mine. He had a great magic YouTube channel. He used to do Magic Mondays, and he actually he had a video that almost got 1 million views just off a magic tutorial.
Wow.
Those tutorial videos, man, they do great. So the
Yeah.
algorithm loved it. He had 8,000 subscribers, and then he stopped. He wanted to do some other stuff, and life brings different platforms and different paths. So but yeah, and I was like, man, I was always interested in doing it. My first ever video was with Ruben a long time ago. We did a free agency breakdown video with me, a good friend of mine named Tapia, and Kenneth the Messenger, who was on there,
Nice.
and then Ruben. And it's embarrassing because it's like I have the hat the other way, and the hat is literally covering my face like this the whole time. So it looks like I'm one of those anonymous dudes that you see at investigations. And then, and I'm like, I rewatched it. I just saw it like a few years ago, and I was like, why did no one ever tell me about my hat? Like it was funny, but I loved it. I love talking. I mean, I've always been pretty into Houston sports. My dad's a big Houston sports guy, so all the way from the Oiler days to till now, and so I kind of just followed the same path. I always wanted to talk Houston sports. I didn't go to college, but I've always thought that maybe this is my path to someday getting credentials and getting some sort of media pass or whatever it is. That's always been another goal of mine besides just building this platform. I never knew it was going to get this big. I always thought it was just going to be whatever. I might get 1,000 subs maybe, in 10 years. And it's been 5 years and I'm almost at 13,000. And it's been a lot of fun, man. I enjoy every single moment of it. That's basically it about me. I don't know what else to add in there.
No, that's awesome. That's the answer I wanted to hear. And like I've kind of learned just from knowing everyone and meeting everybody, and then kind of hearing the individual stories. Like I think we all kind of have a similar story. Like the main thing is like we just love the Texans or love Houston sports,
That's it.
and it's natural and organic. So, and I think because of that, it provides great content. Like we're all passionate about this. Like you talked about grinding, posting all this content. Like I'm doing the same thing, but like we couldn't do that if we didn't care. So I think that speaks volumes about it. But I guess I'll lead off with the first question that I kind of asked AD, since it's been a while since I've caught up with you and your takes on things. How do you feel about the offseason so far for the Texans?
I'm pretty content with it. I think that's about where we can stand on with the Texans. I'm content with everything that's happened in the offseason. I don't think there's like, besides the CJ Gardner Johnson move and the trade value from that, I think the value alone that you got from getting a guy that would have been cut in Kenyon Green and getting a CJ Gardner Johnson who had 12 total interceptions in 2 years with the Eagles, like, yeah, that's the value there is extremely high. But overall, I think I'm pretty okay with what's going on with the offseason. I don't necessarily see anything where I'm going, wow, I can't believe, there's always that one free agent signing where you go, why did we sign that guy?
Mhm.
Like a lot of people were with Lonnie Johnson last year as it kick-started free agency. Why did we sign Lonnie Johnson? Oh, not that guy, not that bum, and thankfully last year's free agency was a very much a big swing for the Houston Texans, and but so far I think it's been all right. Tunsil trade, hey, it is what it is. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff. There's intangibles, and there's a lot of stuff that you don't see on the field, and sometimes you could see on the field
Mhm.
that speak volumes when it comes to the Laramie Tunsil conversation. And I understand the national media perspective. Like, I get their, like, you put themselves in there, you put yourself in their shoes, and it's like they had the worst O-line in football and they traded the best pass protector on their team. How can they do it? It's absurd. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I see what you're saying, but ultimately they don't understand the context behind it, and I get why you have content creators and other NFL media members going, what is going on in Houston? Can you believe they traded away Larry Tunsil and that? So I get the crazy take that they want to spew there, but ultimately I'm like, okay, well, let's really, dissect this and go, okay, the intangibles weren't really meeting what D'Amico Ryans wanted out of his offensive line, out of his offense in general, compared to the defensive side of the ball. So yeah, there's a lot there with Laramie Tunsil, but overall, the offseason, which was the original question, again, pretty content with it.
Yeah, and I guess like, talking about the Laramie Tunsil trade, like, there's been like two or three moves like where I've like noticed like this is like a new D'Amico Ryans. Like he's kind of gone like scorched earth. And it all started with him that first press conference after the loss to Kansas City, where he kind of unprovokingly said that I'm gonna evaluate everybody and like hinted at like maybe Bobby Slowick might be fired. And then, I thought for sure like he said he would spend a week to think on it, like, oh, he'll be fine, he's not gonna fire him. It started with that firing of Bobby Slowick. Like once he did that, I'm not sure how you felt, but I felt like, he's a loyal guy. He's, that's like one of his downfalls. And like ever since then, like he's shown like, okay, like he's done being Mr. Nice Guy. So it started with that. My immediate thought was like, who's next? Like, who's he going to trade or cut? And then we traded Tunsil, which I think most of it was cap, but I think it all goes in together. Like if you don't fit what you need as the leader, I think it all is relative. But it's got me thinking like anybody is on the chopping block, and I think it sends a loud message. So like, I guess on that topic, like, what are your thoughts about that? Do you like that? And then do you suspect that if there were to be any other pieces moved on from, who could be next?
Yeah, I mean, immediately I used to be a manager at a grocery store, Seller Brothers. Shout out to Seller Brothers. And I was a manager there, and I had a boss there. His name was Cedric. He was a store director there. And he used to always tell me, you get the best results out of people that are in the most uncomfortable situations. and and I've always remembered that because I'm like, what do you mean? Like, if I'm uncomfortable, I don't want to work there, But when you really add context to it, it's like, oh, well, shoot, if people are like really looking at, oh crap, I got to get this going in order to keep a job. Like, I need this job. A lot of people need the job, depending on the pay or regardless of the pay. They need the job just in general. They need some sort of money in order to pay the bills. And, you know, not that he made the work environment crazy or, super uncomfortable, but you get people moving, you start talking, and people are going, oh shit, I need to get it going. I need to get my ass moving. I need to start working. I need this job, and that's ultimately what I felt with D'Amico Ryans is, hey, okay, You don't want to do the job? We'll find somebody else that can do it. And it's been a next man up mentality here in Houston as well with DeMeco Ryans. Regardless, I mean, we saw last year with the linebackers. Hi, Christian Harris, you want to be hurt? No problem. Aziz Al-Shaair, you want to get hurt too? No problem. We'll just go into a Packer game with Neville Hewitt and Jake Hansen. And literally the first drive of the game, Neville Hewitt tip pass from Jalen Petrie, interception, almost runs it all the way back. Neville Hewitt had himself a hell of a few games as a starter with some snaps there, and as well as Jake Hansen, who played his ass off. And you get the best production out of them guys. A, they want to play for your head coach, and B, they don't want to lose that job, right? And shout out to Neville Hewitt, man. They did replace him though. But regardless, I love this. I didn't expect that either. I did not expect them to get rid of Bobby Slowick. And that's a great point by Brandon there. That's a great point.
Brandon says, why didn't the national media ask why Texans had one of the worst run games every year the last 5 years with Tunsil and Howard out there?
Yeah. Yeah, with the Bobby Slowick thing, I was shocked. I really was, because, it's the loyalty thing for me stemmed from, okay, DeMeco Ryans is a Gary Kubiak, Kyle Shanahan guy. Gary Kubiak was the coach of the Houston Texans. He was extremely loyal. We had a defensive coordinator named Richard Smith. You had to get rid of him. Didn't really happen until he finally moved on from him with another defensive coordinator named Frank Bush. Shout out to the former Houston Oiler, Frank Bush. Sucked as a defensive coordinator. I mean, absolutely horrible. And you stuck with him for 4 to 5 years until Wade Phillips' blessing came, and Wade Phillips got fired by I believe it was the Dallas Cowboys at the time. And Wade Phillips came on over and changed the entire defense in one offseason and drafted some guy named J.J. Watt, which was very helpful as well too. But at the same time, even moving with that, like Gary Kubiak had an offense coordinator named Rick Dennison that fans wanted to get fired. And Rick Dennison at the time was, I don't know if he was the play caller or not. I'm still a little too young to remember that, but I know fans were calling for that man's job because the offense was struggling at one point. And Kubiak is a very loyal guy. And because DeMeco Ryans played underneath Gary Kubiak, Kyle Shanahan is very similar too with his loyalty. Like, I thought we were going to get that same sort of roots of DeMeco Ryans is, no, this is the guy I picked, and this is the guy I'm going to stick with. And that's what's going to happen, because with loyalty also comes stubbornness. And that's something Gary Kubiak showed here, immediately getting here and saying, no, I'm going to stick with David Carr. That Drew Brees, guys, F him. That guy, his arm's a shish kebab, screw him. And that didn't obviously work out, and he ended up trading for Matt Schaub. But that's what I thought DeMeco Ryans would be. I thought he would be somebody that's just super loyal, a little bit stubborn, and this is my way, and this is how it's going to work. So, yeah, I was shocked that it happened. I was glad that it happened. I thought they did needed a jolt and a different leader on the offensive side of the football. And I thought a great point I just never even thought about. I thought a great point Landry Locker made was Bobby Slowick was never a positional coach.
Yep.
I never even thought about it. It just escapes you. You just think, oh, yeah, he's offense coordinator. And, like, it's a great –
the fast track isn't always a good thing.
Look at his history, his coaching history. He was some PFF stat nerd, and he's got a family history in terms of coaching. And he's just – this guy that works on the offensive side of the ball, worked briefly defensively, then switched over to the offensive side of the ball. Kyle Shanahan loves doing that with all his coaching staff. And did the same thing with DeMeco as well. DeMeco worked briefly on the offensive side of the ball before going to the defense. Same thing with Mike McDaniel. So, it's very interesting that Locker brought that up, and I'm like, he's lying. And I had to Google it, and I'm like, this dude never really was a positional coach. Like, the importance behind that is something we just all overlooked. Like, we were just hoping he was this whiz kid, that could come in and obviously, hey, the rookie year with CJ, I think they didn't know what they got themselves into. Felt like a baby that learned how to walk and wasn't supposed to be walking yet. And like, whoa, man, dude, this is amazing. Like, this is easy right here. And Bobby was like, NFL biz, this is pretty easy, man. This ain't nothing. And then that second year slapped him in the face. And it was like, oh my God, I have 3 wide receivers and I don't know how to actually make different formats and different schemes for all 3 of my
Adjust or
receivers.
adapt.
You know what, Tank? You're just gonna get on motion, and we're gonna throw you the ball and hand it off to you like a running back every time. How you like that, buddy? And he never got any production, and it was just very confusing, the different schemes that Bobby Slowick was having at the beginning of the season. I blame him for the lack of production from Tank Dell at the beginning of the year.
Yep.
I really do. And I'm glad that finally because I got a lot of heat for saying that on my YouTube channel. Oh no, Tank Dell just sucks. No.
He was balling out in the KC game before he got hurt.
Yeah, there we go.
And you know what? And you know why? Like we watched that game together at the watch party, but like my observation was like it was a concerted effort where they schemed plays where he was like the primary read. And the thing that was funny though is like you could tell they were going to his position, and then once he got hurt is when the backup came in, and we still kept calling the same plays rather than throw to Nico. Now we're still throwing to this backup receiver.
Yeah, it was not pretty. It was not pretty. But yeah, man, I would say I was pretty shocked that he got rid of Bobby, but I was also delighted that Bobby was also gone from this team. We could finally advance in some sort of we don't have to shoot ourselves in the foot first and second down. And then you're looking at third down going, and 3rd and 13. Hey, CJ, you call the play, bud. And I'll take this one out, man.
Well, this kind of like makes me realize something too. Like, I know, like, you know, we have little patience and want to win now and like want to win the Super Bowl and all that stuff. But like, we have to remember, like, D'Amico Ryans is a first-time head coach. So maybe some of these things we thought about loyalty, this and that might have been true, but he's still learning himself. Like, hey, I can't do that. Like, I need to be, you know, this and that. So like, and like all we can ask for is like we see growth. So like he's definitely shown growth in that regard. And another point too, like I've kind of thought about as well, like as far as like building a long-term sustainable contender, and like we've kind of seen it with the swarm culture, it takes time for that coach to get his guys into like the building and have 1, 2, 3, 4 years stacked on top of each other. And next thing you know, 80-90% of your roster is that. Like, so in the Laramie Tunsil instance, I mean, he must have been conflicted because he preaches swarm mentality, and the captain leader of your O-line by, you know, play, I guess, you know, by status and pay, Laramie Tunsil doesn't embody any of it. So he's probably torn, like, I want to move on from this guy, but I can't because he's good. So yeah, I guess, you know, the swarm culture is a great thing. And I think we're good for years to come. What are your thoughts on the swarm culture?
Oh, dude, come on, man. Come on.
You swarming?
Oh, big time, man. Everybody's swarming. I love it. I love the mantra. I loved when he talked about it in his introductory press conference, and I was like, swarm. Interesting. I love that introductory press conference. I remember myself and Patrick Storm immediately got on Spaces, and as soon as the introductory press conference was over, and Storm was like, so how you feeling about it? And I was like, he's gonna win us a Super Bowl, man. And Storm was like, okay, let's calm down a little bit. You know, this was before everything happened, obviously, with CJ and trade up. But yeah, no, I love the swarm mentality. I love it, man. I love everything it stands for. I love that the culture it breeds. You know, you're breeding competition right now. That's exactly what you're doing. And the swarm mentality is all over the defense. But it was pretty obvious this previous season that he was lacking on the offensive side of the football. Mm-hmm. You know, you saw a good glimpse of it your rookie year with CJ Stroud in them. You're like, oh man, this team's really believing what D'Amico Ryans is selling. But then this previous year, you could tell the defense, they drank all that Kool-Aid and they didn't leave any for the offense because my goodness, the offense was not swarming unless you had a few drives here and there, too inconsistent. The second halves were horrible. It was tough to watch sometimes as a fan because it really upsets you. It's not that it's tough to watch. It's really like, damn, I know they're better than this. Like we know
we're better last year with the makeshift O-line. That was the mentally, like the mental part of it. Like we all expected, okay, we got all of our starting high paid, high drafted guys back. We're going to be badass.
Yeah. I mean, I was there at the Steelers game with me and my dad watching that game live because we wanted to see JJ Watt get that Ring of Honor induction. And we were delighted with a treat. We did not expect the Houston Texans to drop a 40 bomb on the Pittsburgh Steelers ass. And, my dad hates Steelers because he's a diehard Houston Oiler fan. So he's got that Pittsburgh Steelers hate still in his heart. So he definitely loved whooping there. I mean, it was fun because there was a bunch of Steelers fans around us. And then when we started just whooping ass, man, they fled. They left quick. We looked around us and we're like, hey, man, damn, we're the only people in this row now. Like,
and they travel well too, huh? They packed that place out.
Yeah, they do. Steelers fans, man, they travel. They travel good. You're great fans. I can't lie about that. But yeah.
And so I'll just ask you one more question here. Ruben was supposed to come on, but unfortunately he can't make it. But again, like I was saying to the other guests, this is something I'm doing now, like a little mini series. But obviously, like I was saying with AD, we need to get the round table back together. It's been a while, so it's good to talk ball with you. But hopefully, I can have you on, at a later date, like for a more extended period of time. But
no problem.
Before I let you go, I guess draft is coming up. I guess just give me overall thoughts, like some names that you would like to see us draft, or names that you think the Texans may draft.
I just posted a video. Today. I just posted a video today. I had 5 NFL draft prospects to watch. Somebody to keep on your radar. Not saying that the Texans would draft them. I would say that these guys, I would ensure that the Texans would take a look at it some way, shape, or form. When I look at the draft overall, I looked at the whole entire NFL, like the combine meets, and I screenshotted everyone that was with the Texans. There was about 30 in total from what I saw that was reported on Twitter and X. You had 24 of the positions, right? Or 24 guys, 3 positions, excuse me. There was 3 positions, 24 guys, 8 of them running back, wide receiver, 8, O-line, 8. So that's the positions the Houston Texans met with at the NFL Combine, all tied right there. Conveniently, the NFL draft is very deep with the running back position, the tight end position, and the defensive tackle position. It would not shock me with the Texans having 4 picks within the top 100 that a running back is not picked for the Houston Texans. Where does that leave Dameon Pierce? I have no clue. Now, I saw the workout video, and hey, I wish him all the best. But when it comes to special teams, besides kick returning, he doesn't do special teams. At least that I can remember. I don't remember him running out there in the punt team. I don't. I see Dare and Bugawale doing that, being the block protector, and Dameon Pierce, hey, man, it's easy to find. It can be pretty easy to find a kick returner. You got a wide receiver out of Sam Houston State that the Texans looked at his pro day. His name's Ife Adeyi, runs a 4.35, day 3 wide receiver, little short, sure, 5'8", 190, I think it was.
Look at you super digging fast, deep, bro.
Super shifty, deep, lots of acceleration, lots of speed. That's just somebody that I think, hey, you look at a kick returner, boom, you got something right there.
Well, Braxton Berrios.
And yeah, Braxton Berrios was brought in. He was a former All-Pro at kick returner or punt returner for the New York Jets in 2021. So he's definitely going to bring in that competition right there. Obviously, you lost Robert Woods, so that kind of Braxton Berrios kind of fills that in. But the other guys, I mean, I looked at running back. I love Dylan Sampson. He can be easily a day 2 guy. I can't see him going day 3. I think he's a day 2 guy. He's from the University of Tennessee. He was I've got my notes here. He was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year, first team all SEC running back in all-purpose yards. He has a school record for 22 touchdowns, and there's not a lot of tread on the tires. Like 2022, he was mostly reserve. 2023, he split carries. 2024 is where he started, and that he started all 13 games. He didn't get hurt. Not a lot of tread on the tires. He's about 5'9", 200. Sure, a little short in terms of the height, but he can both run, and he is a damn good receiving back as well. That's something I would not mind the Houston Texans to take a look at is Dylan Sampson.
Tennessee running backs on Houston tend to do pretty well.
I mean, you had one in Arian Foster, and let me tell you, the jump cuts that Dylan Sampson's makes, oh, buddy, I know he's not as big as Arian Foster, but, man, those jump cuts. See, and that's the only thing is, I don't know what I don't know necessarily. Like, I have an idea what Nick Caley is going to run here in offense, but I mean, Dylan Sampson fit that inside zone, jump cut, one cut kind of running back. What is Nick Caley ultimately going to have here offensively? Like, I know
Mhm.
we're supposed to be maybe a little bit more gap team, but I
That's where
I
draft is exciting to me. I guess,
yeah.
like, this offseason, you can kinda have a clearer picture off the pieces he assembles around, but, yeah, I mean, I think it's still ambiguous, but I guess my guess, like, the one thing he did say is he's gonna adapt to his personnel, which we
Mhm.
didn't do, and if our personnel now looks like, big maulers up front that are it looks like a gap scheme blocking O-line. That would be my guess, but we still don't know for sure, so I mean, you're right.
Yeah, so that's what I was looking at. I've looked at the combine now. The Texans with their combine, they didn't draft any of those guys that they met with at the combine last year. So hey,
Yep.
I could be entirely wrong, and maybe it's just not working that way. But I just see the Texans met with Texas Longhorns linebacker David Gabenda. Right now, Aaron Wilson just reported that
Breaking
right now.
news? Alright.
Yeah, just some small news there. Uh, Texans actually had a where he was invited to the Texans local prospect day. Excuse me.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, I like Dylan Sampson, another running back. I like Trevor Etienne a lot. I
Yep.
love me some Trevor Etienne. He could be a late day 2, maybe day 3 guy. Great hands. He reminds me of James White from the New England Patriots, and how
It's a
coincidentally
great
James
comp
White
right there. Look at that. You've been digging in your
James
bag
White
today,
right
man.
there worked with Nick Caley in the New England Patriots.
Yeah, workhorse.
So and also coincidentally, Trevor Etienne's 5'9", 200. James White 5'10", 200. James White, when he was a running back with the New England Patriots, this dude was getting 60, 70, 80 catches. Like,
Yeah,
and
man.
he was a beast.
Man,
And
you just made me realize, Harley, like, we've been talking about this, but, like, that's something that we haven't seen as much in this offense was passing game with the running back, and I can't help but think, like, we're finally gonna know how to throw screens now and throw to the running back, so thank you for sorry for interrupting, but thank you
yeah,
for
yeah.
making me realize that.
What's funny is the Houston Texans actually were one of the better teams in screens if you actually look at the numbers and
'Cause of
statistics.
Nico Collins.
Maybe maybe they accidentally put in one of those screen passes that he took to the house for a touchdown that Laramie accidentally had a little penalty on, but who knows. I love Trevor Etienne. He's got help, man. His hands are great. And he's a solid runner. He's not as explosive as his brother Travis Etienne, but he can still get the job done. And he was a kick returner at Florida before he got there to Georgia. He was a kick returner there, so there's the special teams factor. Versatility is always helpful. I hate to use the Bill O'Brien V word, but versatility is super helpful whenever it comes to these day 3 prospects specifically.
Mhm.
Defense, I would just say, even though I would love another tight end for this team, I
Yep.
I I love Aaron Wilson talking about that, implying that maybe the Houston Texans go younger at tight end. He mentioned that word by word right there, bar for bar. Uh, and he didn't mention Dalton Schultz's name, and that just was like, that's weird. Okay, I know they got Brevin Jordan, and he mentioned him, and he mentioned Kate Stover, but he did not mention Dalton Schultz in their future plans at tight end. And it just makes me continue to be curious about what they're going to do at the tight end position. I love Mason Taylor out of LSU. My
Facts.
goodness,
Yeah, him
that
and
dude.
Ferguson from Oregon are my 2 favorites.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Mason Taylor. He's got the Hall of Fame blood running through his veins. He's the son of Jason Taylor. His uncle is Zach Thomas from the Miami Dolphins. So yeah, Zach Thomas is a brother-in-law for Jason Taylor, by the way.
Oh, I was about to say, how does that work?
Yeah, no,
Brother-in-law is
brother-in-law.
so he's
But
okay, Zach
yeah,
Thomas is
it's
with
just
his
like
sister, huh?
I guess so. It said brother-in-law. It also said he was his uncle. And I was like, okay, whatever. I
I'm
don't know
my own
how.
grandpa.
Yeah, I don't know how correct it was saying uncle, but I love Elijah Arroyo as well from Miami. I'm a big fan of Mason Taylor. He just looks really, really good. Um,
Yep.
Defensively, I'm a big. I want a defensive tackle. I've been banging on the table for a defensive tackle,
Mhm.
and I know hardly we get all these guys that are lunch pail guys, and they do so great in this scheme, and I love it. Don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with that. I would love to finally inject some youth and talent and see what D'Amico could work with
Right.
when you get a guy that has some pretty damn good talent around him. I've seen what he's done with Tim Settle. I've seen him give Sheldon Rankins a big old fat ass contract. Welcome back, Rankins. I've seen what he could do with Mario Edwards, Foley Fatukasi, Tommy Toa. You know, like, come on, man. I've seen what he can do with all of these guys.
Kurt Heinisch.
Yeah, Kurt Heinisch. I mean, you know, R.I.P. my boy Roy Lopez. Shout out to the newest Detroit Lion, excuse me.
Oh.
I seen what he could do with those guys. I wanted Jazon Newton last year. Didn't happen. You know, I really liked Braden Fisk last year. Didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I've been banging on the table for a DT. I wanted Jordan Davis way back then. Shout out to R.I.P. Kenyon Green. No shout out for him. Detractor shout out. I love Shamar Turner out of Texas A&M. Shamar Turner is a 6'3", 290 defensive tackle. A little bit smaller, yes, but D'Amico Ryans, when you look at the prototypical DTs that he likes those smaller guys. Like, and when you go back to his 49ers days, the biggest DT he had was Javon Kinlaw, who was 320, 6'5", 320. Foley Fatukasi is about 6'4", 320. So that's about the biggest you can get. You still need to find somebody that could stop that run for the defensive tackle as well. You don't really have that currently.
We don't have
but Shamar Turner is a very good athletic defensive tackle, very good against the run, has to get better against the pass, but he has a lot of upside. And what I love about Shamar Turner, you know, people say he has a temper. People can say that he created a lot of penalties for Texas A&M and the SEC. And yes, they're absolutely right. They might say he has a temper. I say he is a swarmy individual that needs to be molded by the graces of the God himself, D'Amico Ryans. That's exactly
what Stephon Diggs was, right? I mean, like it takes like a stable environment and a strong leader to like kind of like Diggs. Know how to like he used Stephon Diggs's energy and passion for good and like channeled it and like it worked out great. So yeah, I mean, I used to be like like think that these things wouldn't happen, but he's showing like, okay, I can take these quote unquote risks. I mean, we took a shot on Deontay Johnson, it didn't work, but we tried. So yeah, I mean, I can see it happening.
That's crazy. That should have been the hint for all of us when they cut Deontay Johnson. Like, I was like, hey man, I know that he didn't really fit the team environment and whatnot, but
yeah,
we needed a receiver. Like, I kind of was like,
hey. He looked damn good too.
I was like, can we just wait? Like,
yeah, like I mean, I wonder like if we somehow like squash that and like could he have helped us like play better against the Chiefs? I mean, I don't,
Yeah. And what I laugh is, I'll say it, whatever. What I laugh is, media members had no problem with that. They didn't say nothing. And then you got Laramie Tunsil get gone. No. Somebody that was reportedly okay with the locker room and everything, but ultimately you can't sweep under the rug the intangibles that came with Laramie Tunsil. You can't just sweep it under the rug. You can't just report what you know and what you want to report because you're buddy with somebody. Who gives a shit? Who gives a fuck? Oh, well. I mean, you're supposed to be non-biased people anyway, right? And me, the fan that can't get a media pass because I'm a fan, is being more non-biased about Laramie Tunsil and the Houston Texans and moving on from them than the media member that's supposed to be non-biased regardless. Media members, plural, because there was multiple there. They were just as upset when Jonathan Grenard left. They would have roasted this team if they didn't replace Jonathan Grenard in some sort of fashion. Luckily, they did with Daniel Hunter. They will be waiting for that blindside sack for CJ Stroud. They're going to be waiting. They're chomping at the bit. They got the drafts are already set up. When that blindside sack happens against CJ Stroud, see, they didn't get rid of Laramie Tunsil, No, they care more about the culture than they do. What was the tweet? What's his name? Oh man, I forgot the guy's name. He's kind of a bigger guy, but he's a Houston Texans fan. I forgot his damn name. He does a lot of film breakdowns on YouTube. I forgot his name, but he basically tweeted out a picture. Kevin Durant said, "Is culture gonna help you
Oh, Brett
guard Steph
Coleman.
Curry?" Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I
he
feel like
put
the
his
people that like were like that, they don't know the team like us. Like when we watch this shit every day, like and again, like I don't think that's the sole reason why he was released. I think it was more
no.
so Cap, but like in the end though, like it all goes together. Like if if his cap is super high, but if you didn't have all these other issues and were like you could be justifiable at that number. So like it all goes together, you know?
You can't sweep it under the rug. Like that's just what
Yeah.
it is. You
Yeah.
know, yes, the cap and yes, everything else. It makes a lot of sense. I get it. We got to pay other guys. I understood that. But then when you take a look underneath the rug and you're like, whoa, why is there a bunch of dirty plates under here? What happened? You know, at some point you got to go, oh, well, you can't sweep that under the rug. And what's under the rug was the intangibles of Laramie Tunsil with the willingness to continue his pursuit, continue that second block into the next level,
Yeah.
helping teammates out, helping CJ Stroud out. Like, and it is what it is, man.
And a big part of that too, like we've talked about as well, like in my opinion, like he was like the de facto leader of the O line just based off of, stature from like pay and and like but as a result, like, all that stuff, like if you do have plays where lack effort, like that can't come from you because now it bleeds over. And he was like the vet too. So I mean, like, if he's doing things a certain way, then it sets a precedence like, oh, I can do that too. Yeah, so I think it all factors in, but yeah, so we kind of ran a little bit longer. I guess
My
I
fault.
could talk all day with my guy Harley, man. It's been a minute,
Cool.
but yeah, I guess it kind of checks out since Ruben didn't come on. But I can. I'm trying to think of another question. I usually just kind of wing these things. I feel like it's better when it's just improv. But yeah, so let me try to think of a good question. How about you think of a question for me, and I'll think of a question for you in the meantime. Let's see.
Sure.
Or you
Okay.
don't have to. This isn't about me. I was just trying to buy myself time.
No problem. Oh, interesting one. I had someone. Man, damn it, I forgot his damn name. But someone asked me on a comment and was like, "This is gonna trigger some people." Ben Saul's kicker, Pittsburgh. I think it was Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pittsburgh. I had someone comment and go, "Should the Houston Texans take a look at Ben Saul's the kicker out of Pittsburgh?" And I was like, "Why? We have Kaimi Fairbairn." And I went, wonder how much it saves money. I've never looked into it and everything,
Yeah,
but it's
I've
kind of
been calling it
interesting.
out. So let me
And
pull. Have you seen it?
and somebody commented that on my YouTube channel like 2 days ago, and I was just like, that's actually not a half bad idea. I guess. I know a lot of people feel indifferent right now because Kaimi Fairbairn's missed extra points and whatnot, and ultimately, I still think Kaimi Fairbairn's one of the better kickers in the NFL. It'd be tough to replace that immediately with a rookie kicker. You're putting a lot of pressure on him. You better hope he's the next damn Steven Gostkowski or Adam Vinatieri or something. But Ben Sauls is a really, really good kicker out of Pittsburgh, apparently, and very accurate kicker, has some power behind it too. One of the best kicker according to any of the draft analysts. So yeah, that was just a random question there.
Yeah, I
If
mean it's
you
interesting. I mean, like with Kaimi, like yeah, he's like we all know he's one of the best kickers, but I guess it's been a couple years now. Like for the other side of the argument, like he's missed some clutch kicks and some clutch
yeah,
games. I guess small sample size, but outdoor weather hasn't been great. So I mean, and now like you coupled that with the fact that we talked about D'Amico suddenly is showing that like he's willing to do him and Nick
a
like
random
they've
idea.
sent a message like they could do anything at
Yeah,
any time. But I've been looking at like if you go to overthecap.com and like click on teams, you can like on the right drop down menu. Here, I'll just share the screen real quick.
sure. Go for
You can like look at like different ways to save money. And so I was kind of looking at this as we were going through some stuff here. Let me see if I can get our faces on here still. No, you don't. There we go.
it. Oh,
Yeah. So if for your knowledge, Harley, if you see right there is like a drop down menu, you can do like if you cut
yeah.
them pre-June or cut them post-June, it'll tell you like the column of like the dead money and then the savings. So basically, if there's more dead money and not savings, it doesn't make sense. But I think a restructure was one for Kaimi. So if we were to restructure him, we could save 1.7 million. Which, if you
Yeah.
restructure a guy, you basically convert a portion of their base salary into a signing bonus, which creates
Yeah.
more dead money. So that you restructure guys that you want to keep long term. Extension was also an option. If you extended Kaimi, you could gain 2.7. But then I think if you trade him, Kaimi, I don't know if you get any trade value for a kicker. Is that very
No
common?
clue. Probably not.
Yeah, so it's like even. It's like 3 million in dead and 3.4 in
Some peanuts. It's all
savings.
good.
To look at cutting post. So if you were to cut post, yeah, you wouldn't be able to cut him. So that would be the only thing would be to trade him. But if you were to trade him, you would do it post June 1st, and that would be only 1.4 in dead and 5 in savings. So I mean, that is an option. Trading him. I don't know who trades for a kicker, but
yeah, it was just a question somebody asked me, and I didn't get to it, and I was just like, and I wrote his name down because I was like, Ben, who the fuck is Ben Sauls?
it's a decent nuts joke.
Yeah, it's like kicker out of Pittsburgh. Buddy's doing his homework on the draft, buddy. Where's the YouTube channel for you, commenter? And I was like, okay, I'll write it down. And, but yeah, I never got to it, and so I saw it right now on my notes that I wrote here, and I was like, well, shit, let me ask you. Oh hell, why not? I didn't think that would.
For the record, chat, I am a Emi stan, but I'm just saying, like,
me too.
I'm just like, before, like, I thought everything was super conservative, like nothing crazy would happen, but like now it's like anything could happen, and it's like just because we hypothesize this stuff, and more so it's from the number standpoint, like, okay, like, does this make sense? Does that make sense? So, I mean, if anything, it sounds like if they were to do anything with him, it'd be a restructure or an extension, but yeah, man, that's all I got. I guess we'll just sign off together. But Harley, go ahead and shout out your stuff before we head out, man.
Shout out to Zach Jatenzo. Just hit himself a bomb right now.
Did he?
Oh yeah.
Didn't
just hit
Jordan hit one today
made
too?
The opening day roster. What's up?
Yep. And Jordan went yard today too, right?
Yes, he did as well too. Yeah, that's all I got right there.
Cam Smith made the roster. I can't wait.
Cam Smith did make the roster. Very excited about the Astros. I'll sign off with talking about Houston sports and the rest of the teams. Rockets' first time in the playoffs since 5 years, buddy. Woo. Some maybe real basketball in 6 years. I don't really count COVID basketball. Bubble basketball was as much as it was entertaining. It brought up the hopes and dreams of T.J. Warren, guys that you'll never hear of ever again. But yeah, man, Rockets also won today. They beat the Hawks. They should have beat the damn Nuggets yesterday or 2 days ago, 2 nights ago, whatever. Yep. They Jokic less Nuggets, and you lost the game. But it is what it is. Houston Rockets. Hopefully, they can wrap up that number 2 seed. I'd really love for them to. Obviously, they're not going to get the 1 because of the Thunder, because they're about 12 games up on us. But I'd love to wrap up that number 2 seed and get at least some sort of home field advantage for the Rockets, and maybe avoid playing either the Warriors or the Lakers there. And I know, hey, it's going to be inevitable at some point, but I'd like to see a second round at the least.
I want a series dub for sure.
First round's going to be extremely tough, but yeah. And then Astros, hey man, love Cam Smith. Glad he made the opening day roster. Someone was cutting onions when I saw that video between him and Joe Espada and his family coming in. Super awesome. I love the Astros. I should talk way more about the Astros because I'm more in tune with the Astros than I actually am with Texans and Rockets.
What? I didn't know that.
Shout out to the Cougs, man.
Hey, Bo Diggity 713. Shout out Bo Diggity. He says Rockets getting 50 wins. Do you think so?
Why not? Let's go. Let's go get 50.
Where are we sitting at right now?
I believe 47.
Oh yeah, and we got like 10 games left,
or something like that. I think they're a lock for 50. I think they're 50. Man,
I bet for them to make the playoffs and get over, it was like 41 or 2 wins. It cashed like the same day. So
I'm about to place my bet MGM plus 600 odds. Cam Smith, rookie of the year, second right now. They got him second on the odds list. So they got him on there. He's
already
high.
Second?
Yes, he's below Jason Dominguez. Jason Dominguez is is the first one there to the Marshy.
So this is the counter argument. Like, I can't understand how people are so obsessed about like this year of control. Like, okay, but like you lose a year of control, but like if he plays at a rookie of the year caliber level, then it doesn't freaking matter, right? I mean, am I missing something there?
Do I give a fuck about 2028? Like, I am trying to win the World Series. And look, I don't know if Cam Smith is going to be that guy to propel us into that. But damn it, he looks special. He looks great. And I am tired of the old days of written baseball language of the olden times where, oh no, you can't bring up a young guy. It's going to hurt his confidence and it's going to kill his career if he sucks. Say that to Alex Bregman. Say that to Kyle Tucker. Alex Bregman started in 2016 with the Houston Astros and was horrible. And the Astros wrote it out. Kyle Tucker was with the Houston Astros. Those first 2 years were tough for Kyle Tucker, extremely tough. And they wrote it out. And you had a damn good years from Kyle Tucker as well. So,
and we're in win now too. Like, and if the guy can play, then like, why bench him just because of like this philosophy?
My lineup is considerably better right now with him in the lineup.
It's insane, dude.
I do not want to see Jake and Chas McCormick at the same time in my lineup. I'd rather have one or the other. You know, I don't want.
Look how different it looks now from having moved Altuve to left field and Cam Smith in right field. It went from like, oh shit, this could be a problem to like, all right, this is badass.
Yeah, it really is. Zach DeCenzo making the opening day roster. I'm very excited about
He's
Zach
a baller,
DeCenzo.
dude.
He worked his ass off in spring training, worked his ass off in the offseason, really worked hard, grinded to learn the left field role. So it does make me wonder, you know, I know you mentioned Altuve left field, but it does, you know, Espada did mention that if DeCenzo and Cam Smith are going to make this roster, they have to get everyday at bats. So if he's saying DeCenzo as well, then to me that means Altuve goes back to second base, DeCenzo plays left field, and Altuve spots him every once in a while there. You also have Dugan going back to that super utility role, which I love him in that role. I think he's better in that role. I'm not quite sure if he's an everyday player. I think he's earned the opportunity to find an everyday spot, but it is what it is. You know, you got Altuve, and I'm not taking him out of the lineup unless it's for DHing. So, you know, yeah, that's basically it for the Astros and Rockets talk there. Y'all know what it is, man. It's at the lead _HOU. Y'all can follow me anywhere on social media. I like to talk. I'm an only child, so, you know, I just talk. I just talk.
It makes it easy for me, man. Shit, I'll just ask a question and we're good, baby.
I'm a talker. I talk too fucking much, you know.
I talk like, a lot too, man.
You know, I just get on these diatribes and get on these crazy little, you know, and I'm like, oh, wait, let me get back on track. There's a whole lot of editing when it comes to my YouTube channel sometimes in videos. But yeah, man, at the lead _HOU. Follow it anywhere on social media, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Missing one. Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok. There we go. Almost at 1,000 followers on TikTok. Trying to post more. That's all it is. I got to post more on Instagram and TikTok. Doing pretty well right there. I'm on the road to 15,000 subs. That's what I'm very excited about. I'm close to 13K. I'm trying to get to 15K. I'll get it before the season starts, but I really want to get to 20K before the season starts. That's the ultimate goal, is to hit to that 20, hit to 20K, and then it's on from there, because it's just going to continue to grow. Again, appreciate everybody that's watched, commented, subscribed, liked, talked shit at me. I love it. Like, I love trash talk. I love it. I've got so many TikToks. I got too many TikToks where people were like, the Vikings game. Oh man, I talk so much crap. Sam Darnold is now the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, and I had something of it was a scared dog on a phone calling the NFL commissioner Roger Goodell to get Aaron Rodgers immediately to the Minnesota Vikings because Sam Darnold is now the quarterback of the Vikings. And then Sam Darnold goes in there and drops a 40 burger on us.
Tore us a new one. That game, that was the beginning of the end right there. That was the
Vikings fan base found that video, and they had some fun on my TikTok page. But I love it. I trash talk. I always trash talk. People hate it because they say,
if you dish it, as long as you can receive it, you're good, right? I mean, that's what it's all about.
People say I jinxed the team, so apparently I have this incantation over the Texans, and hopefully my incantations and my hexes are in positivity this year because the hex is like, hey, win a Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl. So yeah, hopefully that's how that works this year. But yeah, man, I I talk to a camera for a living, and sometimes I hope it talks back to me.
Well, I mean, with that being said, man, like I've missed all of you guys. Ruben couldn't make it, but I'm excited to get us all together again. But yeah, as far as me, guys, I mean, my socials, Texans commenter on Twitter and TikTok, and then Houston Stressens on Instagram and Facebook. Check out the website. Got articles at HoustonStressens.com. Free newsletter. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Harley, if you want to stay in, we can chat at the end for a second. But
No problem. I'm cool.
But yeah, appreciate you guys. We blessing.